Hello everyone, my name is Ezra and you're watching F150. Now in today's video, I'm going to be replacing the wheel brake cylinders on both sides of my rear axle. One of the cylinders is leaking, and without brake fluid, it's slowly leaking out. I will not be able to stop the vehicle at all. And without that, I can't drive the truck. If I can't drive the truck, then that's kind of, well, disappointing. So, without further ado, let's get some tools and get the show on the road. So, in all honesty, I actually already redid the brakes, which I was going to do a video on that, but I was down at college at the time, and I needed the brakes to get home, because I just picked this truck up, and then I drove it down to school, and then I did the brakes while I was there, because I have the shop, and then I came back and realized, you know, my brakes aren't really working. So I did the brakes while I was down there. So unfortunately, I was not able to make a video. It was not something I knew exactly how to do, so I had to have some help. But that's all right. Everyone needs help every so often. Unfortunately, though, as you can see, it's kind of messed up. This cylinder right here, I'll circle it in the video, is the cylinder that pushes out. You have brake fluid that comes in while you press on the pedal that pushes fluid out. Pressing two pistons out that push on these, which ultimately push these shoes out to go on this drum, which then pushes out to stop the vehicle. Well, that cylinder went leaky and bad, and something in here didn't want to go out right, and the shoe, this is a brand new shoe, went destroyed. This side's completely fine. All the hardware is fine except for one tiny piece. This adjuster right here. I'll put some other pictures of it. I'm not sure how well that is. This basically sat on the bottom of the drum while I drove. Yeah, so I kind of messed up. So what we're going to be doing is we're going to take all these pieces off, and we're going to put a new cylinder on, and then we're going to put a little bit of hardware on, because I did buy a new one of these self-adjusters. That's really the only part that was destroyed. And then without further ado, we'll get the new cylinder on and all the brake shoes on, and we'll get this truck rolling again. Alrighty, so before I take this off, I just want to mention I have a drum brake tool. I didn't have them when I put them on, so it was a little bit annoying, but you don't need a brake drum tool to put these off and on. It makes things easier, but you can use either a screwdriver or a pair of pliers, and those work not as well, but you can get away with doing them. If you're only doing them every so often, you can do it. I went ahead and got these, but it's whatever, up to you. I'm going to use this just because. Alright, so now that we have access to this brake drum, I'm going to go get a socket and turn the camera to the back so I can pull this drum off. So one problem that I'm running into is I got the brake line off, as you saw. That's loose. I got both of these bolts out, 13mm bolts. And now I'm trying to get this bleeder nipple off. And this is obviously the wrong size. I'm just using this to point around. It's actually, I believe, it's a 10mm. The thing is that it strips. So I can't find a certain size that fits that other than a 10mm. So what I'm going to do is I'm just going to take vice grips and take it off. Now, I would not do this if I didn't have a new one that came with it. But this does have a new bleeder screw that comes with it. So I'm just going to destroy this.
Hey everyone, just a heads up, I've discovered that I actually didn't need to take this nipple out, so I'm actually going to go ahead and just fast forward. There's actually a hole on opening where you can just, all you got to do is take those two 13mm bolts off and the brake line, and the piston will slide out. Sometimes you need a little bit of a breaker bar to get it out, but you do not need to remove that nipple. So just to save yourself some time and myself some time, I'm just going to go ahead and cut out all the footage of me trying to take that nipple out.
Okay, so in all honesty, I have no idea how easy this thing is going to come off, so it might come off with just my hands, or I might need to go, well, I'll use this thing first. Oh, it's coming. There we go. There we go. Bada bing, bada boom. Brake cylinder removed. Alrighty, so here is our matching wheel cylinder. So we can see they're exactly identical. This is just a plug, so it keeps dirt out of it until I put it back on. It looks like it's exactly like it needs to be. So this piece will be coming out, of course, so I can put it back on. But that's the brake bleeding nipple, and that's the brake line. And then I will put my brake pistons themselves into there. They just pop in there, and you can kind of look at them side by side. The rubber part of it isn't exactly the same, but it'll be okay. That's actually a little warm after heating it up for so long. But yeah, so in all honesty, I've actually never put wheel brake cylinders on, so it's going to be a learning process. If I make mistakes, I'll learn from them, but for the most part, let's go put this back on, and we'll do the other side. You know, I realize that I actually did not need to take this nipple out on the other cylinder, because I realized that's like a Mickey Mouse looking hole. But I guess, you know, like I just said, I'll learn from my mistakes, and I won't do the same thing on the other side, saving myself a little bit of time. So let's put this back. This thing keeps getting in my way. There we go. Keep that there. Put that right on there like so. That fits like a glove. As it should. It is the replacement part, but look at that. I love the look of new parts. So I found myself a little bit of a better camera angle than before. So what I'm going to be doing now is I'm going to be putting back my 13mm screws in, or I'm sorry, bolts in first. And it's around socket size. Before I put them on, I'm just going to spray them with PV Blaster. I know you can't see it, but just trust that I'm doing it. That way they go in nice. If you can get new hardware for this, I would encourage you doing so, if you're using this as a how-to. Put one there. Just get it started with my fingers. And number 2, started with my fingers. I'm going to take my hand on the back side of this, push it forward, and make sure my socket's facing the right way. Which is, and I have my hand covered in PB Blaster, so can't get a very good grip on it. That's getting tighter right there. Before I tighten that down all the way, I'm going to go to this side before I fully tighten both of them down. Ooh, everything's slippery. Alright, let's come back to this side. Oop, don't strip that out, buddy. Kind of make it nice and snug. Don't want it super tight. right? I know my hand's in the way, I'm sorry. That should be good for now. Now I'm going to take a rag and put this brake line on, which you can kind of see, to clean up that brake line tip, and then we'll put that on too. Alrighty, so I know that's not the best angle, and I apologize, but I'm just dealing with myself right now. I don't have anyone else to hold the camera. Take that plug out. Set that aside. I'm gonna get my, oh, and I dropped my phone. Okay. Gonna get my rag. Just gonna clean up this tip. Brake lines aren't super flexible. Be very careful. I don't want any contaminants to go in there. Sorry, I'm doing my best to make sure all of you guys can see. That is the wrong size. Where did I put that wrench? Here it is. I want to make sure that I'm not cross-threading this. It starts to get hard. I'm going to stop and try again. That's going in. Going in real nice. That's what you want. Might have spoken too soon, actually.
Now here's the point of the video where I'm starting to run into a little bit of trouble with this brake line. You see, since it's a metal piece of line, it can't really bend very well. It didn't really want to line up with the threads very well when I screwed it into the cylinder. Once I finally did get it lined up, I made sure that it wasn't cross-threaded because this is a very crucial thing I do not want cross-threaded. Once I made sure it wasn't cross-threaded, I did start turning it in with the wrench, but it started to get really, really tight, and I wasn't quite sure why until I realized, hey, there's some threads that were sticking out on the old cylinder that are really rusty and dirty. So I cleaned them up with a wire brush and some PB Blaster, but a lot of the threads towards the end of the nut towards the top of the nut were really, really rusty still. So when I went to go tighten it down, it wouldn't want to tighten down all the way to a point I was very comfortable tightening down, and it was still leaking brake fluid. So I had to keep tightening it almost to a point where I thought I was going to maybe snap it off or cross thread it to make it tighten, but it doesn't leak anymore. I just had to make sure they were really, really tight, and yeah, but nothing's cross-threaded, but I just wanted to give you guys a heads up in case you're doing it to be very careful to make sure not to cross-thread it and make sure it's tight so you don't leak.
Alrighty, sorry, the camera keeps going off and on. The brake line would not want to start, and I was having a mini heart attack thinking like, is this not gonna thread in? But I got it started, and now it's going in. I still wanted to show you guys this process. Again, wanted to make sure we're not cross-threading it. It's going in nice and easy. It's leaking a combination of brake fluid and a PB Blaster. Now, once we're all done, we'll make sure there are no leaks. It is actively leaking. And why is that still leaking?
At this point in the video, I was getting really frustrated. I wasn't understanding why it was still leaking. After I cleaned up the threads and sprayed it with some more PP Blaster and tightened it down even further, I did get it to quit leaking. Unfortunately, since I was getting frustrated, I didn't actually record everything. I was just really wanting to get everything fixed at the truck at this point, so I apologize for not getting everything recorded, but I thought I might at least mention it and show you what footage I did get.
Alrighty, guys, I'm sorry. So, I did eventually get this line in, and I got that nipple. Well, I took the nipple out, make sure it was all the way in, and that is all the way in. So I wanted to share something I learned with you guys. So, make sure when you're putting this nut in, number one, that it's not, that it's lined up properly, not cross-threaded. And number two, clean up your threads. Because what I just learned is that, some of my threads were rusty, so I had, and kind of grimy and everything. So when I went to put the line all the way in, the rust got in the way. So I'm like, oh, it's bottoming out, which it was not, and it was leaking out the top. And I'm like, why is it leaking? But after cleaning up those threads with just a wire brush, I was able to get that line on and make it stop leaking. So now I am pretty happy, but that cylinder is now officially on. I'm going to finish putting these brakes together, and it's basically the same process for the other side. Okay, so now that we got that brake line on, it's now time to put all the drums on. So, what actually happened, the reason I'm doing these drums is because, number one, I didn't do them when I first put my brakes on, which I should have done because I saw the condition of them. They were bad. I need to do them, but I didn't buy them at the time, so I didn't put them on, and they went kaput on me, and that's what happened to my brake shoe. That is a brand new brake shoe. Probably not even 30 miles on that. Well, that's not true. Probably like, actually, I probably put like 200 miles on those shoes. Not in terms of braking with 200 miles, but just in terms of driving. So they didn't sell just one shoe, which I'm not surprised why they wouldn't just sell one shoe. So I'm not angry at that at all, but I did have to buy 4 new shoes, which is a little frustrating because I did just buy these new shoes, and I'm like, well, I would have liked to only replace them when I would have had to, but I had to replace them anyway. But the first thing I got to do is I got to remove this horseshoe, take this parking brake off, this parking brake arm off. It's not super bent, so we should hopefully be able to reuse it. That's honestly my hope, because that's what I was planning to do. And then we'll put all the rest of the shoes on. Alright, just to go through and double check. New cylinder, spring, cable, thingamajig. Alrighty. So we did lose a lot of brake fluid, so we will have to top off the reservoir with more brake fluid that's under the hood. But in the meantime, I'm going to put this drum on and set this adjuster at the bottom. And we'll need a screwdriver. Alrighty, so once you get the drum on, you should come around to the back again and find you have like piston up there, axle obviously in the middle, and this hole right here. Now, you will most likely, or probably, have a little plug in there. Just pull that plug out and take yourself a flathead screwdriver. If I can find mine. Here it is. Take yourself a flathead screwdriver and find that adjuster and lift it up. So you can turn it. I can't get a very good angle of me putting inside of it. But keep lifting it up until there's a drag. Now, I have the truck in neutral right now. Obviously that wheel isn't going to move, but the transmission will move and everything. So once I've gotten to a point where I want to spin this thing until the shoes touch just kind of barely drag on it. And it sounds like they are. I can pull it off, kind of tell. And it is wearing a little bit. I'm going to go a few more turns. And it will eventually adjust itself as the brakes wear, so, but I at least want to get it as close as possible. I've definitely made progress compared to where I was. Let's see if that'll go back on. Goes on just fine. I'm actually going to adjust it from right here. And what this is doing is it's pushing out on the bottom sides outwards. I didn't even notice that. This cable has a Mitsubishi logo on it. This is not a Mitsubishi. Okay, keep adjusting. I'm going to leave it as that and then pump the brakes. I'm by myself, of course, but I put a brick on the brake pedal, so we'll see if it'll spin. And it does spin, which is not good.
As you can see in the video, the wheel does spin, even though I said I do have a brick on the pedal. Like I said, I also was alone, so I couldn't really pump the brakes. One thing I did not do before I did this was bleed the brakes, because I now haven't filled that cylinder up with brake fluid, so there's nothing really pushing on it except a little bit of air. So it makes perfect sense as to why that thing wasn't pushing out. You will need to bleed the brakes before you can actually test to see if the brakes work. Now, I did actually end up bleeding the brakes off screen. I wish I recorded it. I'm really sorry, but I actually needed help to do this. So my dad actually came home after on work one day, and he helped me bleed the brakes. And I would have recorded it, but it just flew straight over my head. So I thought I might at least explain to you what we did so you guys can do this yourself. What we did is we had a little bottle that we filled up halfway with brake fluid. Probably not even halfway, maybe a quarter of the way of brake fluid. We have a little clear tube and two people, basically. What we did is we had obviously the little bottle full of brake fluid, and then we put the tube into the bottle with the one end sticking underneath the surface of the fluid and the other end of the hose onto the brake nipple. We opened that brake line with, not the brake line, but the brake bleeding nipple, and had someone step on the brake pedal in the truck. Once we stepped on it a few times, you'll see air bubbles coming out of that tube that you put onto the brake nipple, and you'll see it go into the bottle. What the bottle is for with the fluid is so that air doesn't go back up into the system. It can actually suck up a little bit of the fluid in the bottle if it needs to once you stop pressing on it. Once bubbles stop coming out of the system when you step on it, you can close that line off and continue to walk over to the next side. Even if you do just the back, I would recommend you do the front too, just in case you have the system. Now, do as I say, not as I do. I didn't actually do that, but I just did the 2 back ones. I need to do the front ones, but it's very simple. You just need like a bottle, a small little tube, and 2 people. You can have your wife, your girlfriend, your sister, your best friend, your brother. It doesn't really matter. You just need 2 people that can step on a brake and look at fluid come out of a hose. But that's pretty much it. I'm sorry I didn't record it all, but I wanted to say thank you guys so much for watching. If you have any suggestions or want to say anything, leave it down in the comment section below. If you liked the video, make sure you leave a like and subscribe for just more content like this, and I will see you guys next time. This is Ezra signing off.